They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey guys, what is up? It is Seatin here, and on today's video I'm going to be covering 61 Warlock, 9 Necromancer, and 6 Harbinger for a friend of mine called Phoenix, or Phoenix. I have entirely forgotten how to pronounce his name, but I am sure he won't be appalled and ashamed at that. So basically, 61 Warlock is arguably one of the most complicated specs in the game, and it has kind of two different rotations, one for above 50% and one for below 50%. Unfortunately, I can't show you the below 50% one, but it is fairly easy, and I'll explain it towards the end of the video in regards to what you need to incorporate. But the standard rotation is what I have on the top of my bar is I have the 5 dots that need to be initially applied. Now, Warlock revolves around kind of using, toggling between Void Barrage and Persist every 10 seconds, so using one of them every 10 seconds to refresh all of the dots, ensuring that you keep all of the dots up, while basically also keeping Blazing Light up and spamming your spam macro, and finally using Consuming Agony whenever you get either an unstable opportunity proc, I believe it's called, or just opportunity proc, or a proc from your armor. So in regards to that, it's a fairly straightforward to play in theory, but it does take a bit of practice. Literally, if you want to master Warlock and get really comfortable with the rotation, you're probably going to have to spend about 10 to 15 minutes in front of the dummy playing around with things and the various key bindings, etc., because there are unfortunately a fair few buttons to use with the spec. So initially, sort of on the pull, what I'll do is I'll apply my dots one by one. A lot of people talk about pre-casting Devouring Shadows beforehand, and you can do that for a fairly decent DPS increase. Now, what I'll start off with, once I've applied all the dots, is I'll go into a Void Barrage, and then I will spam my main macro. When my Void Barrage is halfway off cooldown, then I will use Persist to refresh the dots once again, and then basically it sort of alternates on from that. So basically I'll now use Void Barrage whenever it comes off cooldown, and then Persist whenever it comes off cooldown, and that should tie in fairly nicely and keep all of my dots up 24/7 essentially. So that's pretty awesome. So as you can see, you know, it's just a matter of spamming this macro. Now the DPS does take a while to ramp up the way the Warlock works, so let's see if we can get some decent numbers being output on the damage meter at the moment. And ladies and gentlemen, by no means am I an absolute expert on Warlock. I'm just kind of, you know, getting to grips with it and getting the fair hang of it in the basics, and trying to share that with you guys to, you know, make you guys slightly better at the game, and so you understand stuff a bit more. So let's use this cooldown, another Void Barrage, and you'll notice in the macro I've macroed most of sort of the Empowered Darkness and also Sacrifice Life Damage, which are two of the main abilities that will be kept up most of the time. And also I've macroed Sacrifice Life Damage into the main spell macro. While this isn't entirely efficient, it's a very lazy and easy way to do things, and you can also take these out of the various macros if you do really want to min-max with those various abilities. So essentially it is keep all your dots up. When they're about to expire, either use Void Barrage or Persist, and try and get one of those going every 10 seconds ideally. And yeah, that is a very easy and simple way to play Warlock. Now, in the video description, you'll notice I'm not sort of fully utilizing my charge, like I'm not using Contaminate very well, because I'm not entirely comfortable with doing that with a rotation, because I'm still a bit of a noob. So if you really want to min-max that, a few things to work on are sort of adding Contaminate to the rotation, and also looking into Neddra's Grasp on certain boss encounters. Now Neddra's Grasp basically deals additional damage whenever the target does an action of some sort. So on fights where the boss is performing a lot of abilities and actions, that will be a DPS increase and will also benefit to add to the rotation. But hopefully I've just kind of demonstrated a very easy and simple way to play it, which will give you a fairly effective DPS. I mean, if you look at that, 13.1k, and my gear is alright. I mean, you know, it's not even. I don't think I'm ready for tier 2 on this character now. I'm sort of part way through tier 1 geared. So yeah, I'm okay geared, but not brilliantly geared. Just to give you a general idea of sort of your performance, etc. So this is actually the top DPS spec for mages if you can play it well. But the top spec for mages overall, which if you can get in melee, is a 61 Harbinger, which I'll be covering sort of an updated guide shortly on how to play it. But for those of you interested in sort of more Warlock theory, you know, once again, I'll link the Warlock theory crafting post on the forums, which is absolutely brilliantly written. I highly advocate using it. And the final thing is basically when you get below 50%, I'll just quickly cover this verbally, but it's quite hard to explain. You need to Death Store has a 10-second cooldown. It's a dot that has a 10-second cooldown and only lasts 8 seconds. So basically, you need to juggle refreshing it between Void Barrage, Persist, and also Salvage Corruption and Deathly Power. So basically, whenever that hits 1 second, you'll need to use one of these abilities to refresh it. Now, adding in Salvage Corruption basically means what Salvage Corruption does is it takes off all your dots off the target and then applies them sort of on a buff on yourself, and then you can just send them to another target. But basically all you have to do is you have to macro Salvage Corruption and also Deathly Power together, and I'll provide the macro with that. But the rotation below 50% is covered a bit more in the written guide. It's very hard to demonstrate it. But anyway, thank you for watching the guide. If you have any questions at all about Warlock, I will see what I can do to answer them. So leave them in the comments below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a thing or two about a fairly straightforward way to play Warlock. Thank you.